In the name of Allah, the most beneficent and merciful, I welcome you all in our today's session. After last session, we discussed decision making techniques qualitatively and quantitatively. We talked about decision making in groups, and we discussed brainstorming, nominal group technique, Delphi technique. Then we started talking about decision making under certainty and uncertainty. So in case of uncertainty, we discussed that there are 5 ways with which you can calculate your optimum decision under the circumstances when environmental factors are not much known. And those 5 techniques were Maximax, Minimax Regret, Hurdzwick, Laplace, which is equal likelihood, now we're going to talk about expected value of perfect information. Which is abbreviated as EVPI. Expected value of perfect information is the maximum value of perfect information to the decision maker. In this particular situation, the decision maker is absolutely aware of what is going to happen next. And to know that perfect information about the future course of action, the decision maker is going to spend an amount, and with that decision, after having perfect information, the decision maker is going to get a return. And the decision maker should be there to calculate cost versus benefit analysis, that cost of getting to that perfect information and the benefit he or she is going to drive out of that perfect information. And obviously the benefit should be more than the cost. So that aspect of decision making is calculated by expected value of perfect information. So the maximum amount that an investor would pay to purchase perfect information. Now let's discuss its example. Supposedly that, continuing our last discussion, the decision maker is absolutely sure that good conditions of the market will exist 70% of the time, and the person should go for maintaining the status quo. So choose maintain status quo with payoff of 1300,000. And the decision maker is also aware that the poor conditions will exist for 30% of the time. And the decision maker knows that in the poor conditions, expansion was the right choice. So he or she should choose expand with payoff of 500,000. So the total amount which the decision maker is going to get out of the perfect information would be 1300,000 into 0.5, into 0.7, which is about the good condition, and 500,000 into 0.3, which is about the poor condition. And eventually the decision maker is going to get 60,000 return. Now recall that expected value without perfect information was 865,000, which is maintain the status quo. And in that case, if we deduct the amount which is without perfect information from the amount with perfect information, so that would be equal to $195,000, which is obviously much greater than the amount which could have been collected without the perfect information. So the gain we have achieved in EVPI after having perfect information is $195,000. Now, supposedly in this particular situation, we are not calculating the probabilities. We are not calculating the optimism and the pessimism of the decision maker. And when we talked about the optimism and pessimism, which was known as coefficient of optimism, remember that this nature, the value of alpha, would be calculated after certain psychological evaluations and tests. And in those psychological evaluations and tests, the optimistic and the pessimistic concerns of the managers can be calculated, just like we calculate the personality, like we calculate the Big Five score, we calculate the MBTI, we calculate locus of control, the other behavioral investigations we can have. By the same method, we can see that how much is the level of optimism and pessimism in one's personality. And for that, we conduct different psychological tests. So after that psychological assessment, once the alpha value is obtained, through that, we can find out that what could be the right decision. And obviously, the decisions would always carry the concept and construct of risk. But in case of EVPI, expected value of perfect information, we are saying that in this situation, we have tried to reduce the risk almost to zero. And there is absolutely confirmed situation that what and when and how the things are going to happen. Now, there is another concept in the sequence of our operational decision-making techniques, and that is sequential decision trees. Sequential decision tree is a graphical method for analyzing decision situations that require a sequence of decisions over time. Decision tree consists of, number one, square nodes, which would be indicating decision points. The second thing we'll see in the decision tree is circle nodes, which indicate states of nature. And the third thing we're going to witness in decision tree are the arcs, which are the connecting nodes. And this expression of the nodes and the graphical representation would be clear to you once I'll show you the physical demonstration of a decision tree. Now, the calculations are done, already calculated, aspects are given to you. And these calculations would be helpful to you once the decision tree is visible. So I'm moving to the decision tree now. This is the decision tree analysis. In this situation, we said that the square node is the decision point, and the circle node, like we can see different squares and circles in the diagram, and the circle node are the options carrying probability, chances of occurrence. So we start from the first square node on the left side of the CN tree. On the first point, we can have two options. That either we can expand our business by investing 800,000, the negative sign shows investment, or we can go for purchasing the land for 200,000. Again, it is with the negative sign. That means that we are spending this amount. Now, it is not necessary that you can have only two starting decisions. There can be 10 starting decisions. There can be 15 starting decisions. It all depends that how much complicated the decision situation is. So for the simplicity, we have said that there are two starting situations, starting decisions, that we can either go for expansion or we can go for purchasing the land right now. Now, making a decision right now would be dependent upon the future courses of action, would be dependent upon the future circumstances of the market. So for that matter, I'm extending the expand decision, and we can see that if we expand by spending $800,000, we reach to the point number 2, the circle node, in which there is 60% probability that the market would grow, and there would be 40% probability the market may not grow. And supposedly, if we extend the arm of 60% probability that market would grow, we can have the expected value of 20,000. Now, if we can have the return of 20,000, that would be multiplied by the probability, which is 0.6. And supposedly, if the market would not grow, we can have $225,000. So in that case, $225,000 would be multiplied by 0.4, and summing up, we'll reach to the node 2, and we can have $1,290,000 as a return. So that is how we calculate. First, we go on the forward move, and once we get the forward move ending node in which the returns are being calculated, then we move backward by calculations on every node and find out the expected returns. Now, coming back to my decision point, the second extension can be about the purchase land. In case of purchasing the land, I have to spend 20,000. Rather, it is 200,000. So if I have to spend 200,000 to purchase the land, I reach to the node 3, in which the market situation 60% of the time for the next 3 years would grow. But as the land is only purchased, no business is being done, so no payoff is given. And on the other side, if no market grows for the 3 years, again the land is purchased, there is no return, we reach to the square node of 5. Now, after the scenario of 3 years, we reach to the nodes 4 and 5. In case of node 4, after 3 years, we can plan an expansion, which may cost us 800,000. And we reach to the node number 6. And at node number 6, there is 80% probability after 3 years and after expansion, we expect that market may grow, and 20% probability that market may not grow after 3 years and after our expansion. Now, if the market would expand, we'll get 300,000. And if the market would not expand, we'll get 700,000. So we multiply 700,000 with 0.2 and 300,000 with 0.8. And after calculations, we reached at 6th node and get the return of 2,540,000. Now let's move to the other side from the node 4, and it says that after 3 years of market expansion, if you don't expand, you just sell the land, you can get the return which is equal to $450,000. So that would be the situation of the land after market growth. Now, moving towards the 5th square node, we can see that supposedly if the market may not grow, we have 2 decisions: either sell the land after 3 years, or we can establish a warehouse. Now, if we establish the warehouse, it would cost us $600,000. But if we sell the land, once the market has not grown, after 3 years, so a little appreciation would have been done of the land, and we may get $210,000 after a wait of 3 years. And the market has not grown. Now, supposedly, if we don't sell the land because the return is not that good, to establish a warehouse, we need to spend $600,000. And by spending $600,000, after establishing warehouse, we reach to the circle node of 7, in which the situation can be that 30% is the chance that market will grow, and 70% is the chance that market may not grow. So what we would do is that we'll do the calculations of $300,000 with 0.3 and $100,000 with 0.7, and we'll get 1390000 at circle node 7. Because we have spent $600,000 to get this return, so we'll minus this amount from 1390,000, and we'll reach to the square node 5, which would be $790,000. So that would be the return we're having at the square node 5. So at square node 5, there was a 40% chance that the market may not grow, and square node 4, there is a 60% chance that market would grow. So we'll calculate the amounts accordingly, and we'll reach to the circle node 3. Once we reach to the circle node 3, and we have also got the values at circle node 2, so we'll see which one is giving us the greater return. So for circle node 2, we have to spend $800,000. For circle node 3, we have to spend $200,000. And after deducting the investment amounts, we'll come to know that the circle node 3 may give us more benefit as compared to circle node 2. So that is how we calculate the decision tree analysis. And it is very beneficial for us for making decisions for the future. When there are multiple situations and complications exists, when there are different decisions that we have to go through. You might have remembered that we talked about strategy culture compatibility in the previous sessions. And in that strategy culture compatibility, we discussed a decision tree in which we discussed that either change the strategy or change the culture. So that method, which we discussed earlier, that is the same method we are discussing right now, and that is decision tree. So this method basically gives us a graphical orientation about our decision making, and adapting the same method of probability calculations, we can have a visual display which can guide us that which decision is the right decision for us. Now that was the style we can adopt as a managerial concern when we are discussing decision making. Now we are moving towards more strategic discussion. And in this case, it is assumed that we have analyzed the market, we have collected the data, and in the light of that collected data and market analysis about the external environment and the internal environment, now we are going to make decision making. And the first strategy formulation framework we're going to talk about is from the book of Fred R. David. And Fred R. David said that in strategy formulation framework, the strategy would be developed, the final strategy would be selected after passing through 3 stages. The stage 1 is known as input stage, the stage 2 is known as matching stage, and the stage 3 is known as the decision stage. So far, we are looking at a third way of how to make decisions, as the first method was decision in groups. I repeat again, decision making in groups in terms of brainstorming, nominal group technique or Delphi technique. Or we can have decision making under probability analysis, under uncertainty. And in case of, we can calculate expected value of perfect information, and then we can find out that what decision is the right decision for us. And the third style is this framework. Now, let's discuss how this framework actually works. In the stage 1, the input stage, we have to develop 3 matrices, which we have already gone through in our discussions and in our phase 1 and phase 2 analysis. Now this stage 1, which is input stage, would comprise of external factor evaluation matrix, internal factor evaluation matrix, and competitive profile matrix, CPM. So remember, our 3 basic matrices, IFE, EFE, and CPM, are part of input stage. And through that information, we should be very much clear about our strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threats, and we should be clear about our competitive profile, that how the competitors are operating in the industry, what are the key success factors they have. So these things are clear at this stage. Once the input stage matrices are done, the second stage would start, which is the matching stage. And in the matching stage, we have 5 matrices. The first one is strength, weakness, opportunity, threat matrix, which is SWOT matrix, and sometimes it is also known as DWOS matrix. The second would be strategic position and action evaluation matrix, commonly abbreviated as SPACE matrix. The third would be Boston Consulting Group matrix, as you can see the abbreviation BCG. Then we'll be talking about internal external matrix, which is IE matrix. And then we'll be looking at grand strategy matrix. These are the 5 matrices we need to develop now in the stage 2. Some of these matrices are qualitative in nature, and some of these matrices are quantitative in nature. We'll do calculations. We'll be using formulas to reach to our matching stage analysis. And remember that stage 2, the matching stage matrices, are there to provide us alternatives. The stage 1 is giving us the baseline data. Based upon our baseline data, we'll do the matching stage matrices, and the matching stage matrices would provide us alternatives, strategic alternatives. that which strategies we should be following, keeping in mind the results of IFE, EFE, and CPM. But the matching stage matrices, they lack the ability to select the best strategy for us. I repeat again, the matching stage matrices would only be there to calculate alternatives. Which alternatives we should be adopting in the light of our stage 1 analysis and in the light of what our current industry situation is, in the light of what our internal circumstances are. But the second stage matrices would not be able to select the final strategy for us. As you could see in the stage 1 input stage, that summarizes the basic information needed to formulate strategies. And we discussed that it may include EFE and IFE and CPM. But moving back, if we go to stage 3, which is the decision stage, that is the stage where you can shortlist your selected alternatives and find out that which particular strategy should be adopted by your firm, by your corporation, to reach to your defined objectives. So that third stage, which is the decision stage, is quantitative strategic planning matrix, abbreviated as QSPM. So this matrix would be having the techniques and the power to select the final decision, to select the final strategy for us. Now, we have already talked about stage 1. And let's look at stage 2, which is matching stage. It says that focuses on generating feasible alternative strategies by aligning key external and internal factors and techniques. We have already talked about that we may go for SWOT or TWAS matrix. We can go for space matrix, BCG, IE matrix, and grand strategy matrix. And the stage 3 is talking about QSPM, quantitative strategic planning matrix. And it is said that QSPM reveals the relative attractiveness of alternative strategies and thus provides objective basis for selecting specific strategies. So that is a basic concern. We'll be having at the decision stage, in which QSPM will be waiting for us. Now, how to match key external and internal factors to formulate alternative strategies? We can see in this table that sometimes we can pick one internal and one external factor, and then we can combine these two factors to reach to our resultant strategy. So that would be the matching key external and internal factors to formulate alternative strategies. For example, after the internal audit, the firm is able to find out that they have excess of working capital, which is an internal strength. And after external audit, they're able to find out that 20% annual growth in the cell phone industry is expected to happen. So that is an external opportunity. So what they have done in this table, that they have matched one internal with one external, that using this strength, how can you avail that opportunity? So the answer is of this equation is equal to Acquire Cell Phone Incorporation. So this is a company outside, and the strategy proposed is horizontal integration, right? So look at the second internal factor, which is a weakness. And in that weakness, it is said there is insufficient capacity. So insufficient capacity of the business is an internal weakness. And there is an opportunity outside which says that exists exit of two major foreign competitors from the industry, that the competition is reducing. Two major firms, they have left the industry. That is an external opportunity. And if we combine these two, so that would be equal to pursue horizontal integration by buying competitors' facility. The people who are having the exit strategy, you can buy their facility to increase your internal capacity and to overcome your internal weakness. So remember, by matching of internal and external factors, our intention is that we need to reduce our weaknesses. We have to use our strengths. We have to improve our strengths to avail the opportunities and to avoid the threats. For example, look at the last matching key external internal factor strategic option, that there is an internal weakness, and that is poor employee morale. That is an internal weakness. And the external threat is rising healthcare cost. So if the healthcare cost is increasing and the employee morale is getting down, so the option with you can be that develop a new wellness program. So that wellness program, that new wellness program would be there to improve the employee morale. And obviously that wellness program would be less cost effective for you as compared to increasing health costs outside. So we make matches, we make combinations of all the factors in our SWOT, and we make matches between strength, weakness, opportunity, threats. And if we develop a framework of matching these options, we'll reach to the SWOT matrix. So the strength, weakness, opportunity, threat matrix, also known as TOWS matrix, in which we talk about TOWS, it helps managers develop 4 types of strategies. These are the 4 types of matches we can think of. The first would be SO, which is strength and opportunity mix. The second would be WO, which is weakness and opportunity mix. The third would be ST, which is strength and threat mix. And the fourth would be WT, which would be weakness and threat strategies. When we talk about SO combination or SO strategies, use a firm's internal strengths to take advantage of external opportunities. That is our context. When we say WO strategies, it would aim at improving internal weaknesses by taking advantage of external opportunities. If we look at ST strategies, that would be use a firm's strengths to avoid or reduce the impact of external threats. Or if we talk about WT strategies, that would be defensive tactics directed at reducing internal weaknesses and avoiding external threats. So that's how we are going to have 4 sets of strategies: SO, WO, ST, WT. Now there are 5 steps written on the slide through which we can discuss the TOWS matrix. The first one is list the firm's key external opportunities. The second is list the firm's key external threats. Third is list the firm's key internal strengths. Fourth is list the firm's key external weaknesses. And these all would be coming from IFE and EFE. And then 5th step, match internal strengths with external opportunities. Match internal weaknesses with external opportunities and record the resultant WO. Match internal strengths with external threats and record the resultant ST. And match internal weaknesses with external threats and record the resultant WT strategies. This is the tabular display of TOAS matrix, and we'll be discussing it in detail in our second session. So hurry up and join the second session.